Good afternoon. We're glad you're here. We're going to wait a minute while another 50 or so people enter the webinar. Thank you. Okay, we're going to get started. I'm going to put the agenda up briefly. So we did send this around this morning, but we wanted you to get an idea of the structure of the afternoon. We're very happy to have you here for the tenure and promotion session for tenure track faculty. I'm very pleased to be doing this. I think this is the 5th year that I've organized this with the UFF. And one of the reasons we started teaming up with the UFF, Academic Affairs and the Faculty Mentor Program teamed up with the UFF was in response to some of the information we got from an earlier coach faculty satisfaction survey that indicated faculty were not happy with how clear the tenure and promotion guidelines and process was. So we think this workshop has really been critical in helping change that metric for us. And when we did the new coach study, that was no longer an issue of concern for faculty. So this must be the right thing to do, we hope anyway. So we have a few introductions. Eric Dwyer, the grievance chair of the UFF, will be doing the main part of the presentation. And we have a few first-person accounts, short talks about what the process was like. And then we'll have a nice Q&A session. So I am now turning it over. I think the Provost Furton is here.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
I'm here. I'm pleased to welcome our Provost and Vice President, Kenneth Burton. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for participating in this, our first virtual tenure and promotion tenure track faculty workshop. I still remember, now actually decades ago when I first came up for tenure. It was very probably when I was most nervous in my life, and when I got tenure, one of the most proudest moments of my life, and then then eventually becoming full professor as well. And so this is an age-old tradition in the academy that we want to make sure we follow all the procedures correctly, and we also want you all to know that the faculty we hire at FIU, we expect are of the quality that you with the right mentoring and with the right support will get tenure. You know, we don't have a quota of certain number of people getting tenure. We hire fantastic faculty that should get tenure. And once you get tenure, those of you who are looking to get promoted, we want you to continue to get the support you need to become full professors and eventually university professors, and to maintain that trajectory. So I just want to let you know that the Office of the Provost is here to support you in any way possible. And this workshop is a critical component of that. So I want to thank the United Faculty of Florida for putting on this workshop. Back in the early days when I was in the Department of Chemistry, I was a union steward before I went to the dark side and became an administrator many moons ago. But I also really want to thank Susanna Rose, who 6 years ago agreed to take on the leadership role to create the Office of Advanced Women, Equity, and Diversity. And the Faculty and Mentor Program is one of the most successful programs I think we've had. And I worked with her on that back when I was Dean of Arts and Sciences, and now as Provost, and we've expanded that. And I think that's been a big part of our faculty being more successful. And then last year, or I guess maybe a little over a year ago, Kathleen Wilson agreed to become the inaugural Vice Provost for the Office of Faculty Leadership and Success. I want to thank Kathleen as well as Susanna for both of them helping to organize this workshop, working with the UFF, but Kathleen's role in being there, her sole reason for that office being there is for your success and help you become better leaders, to not just become tenured, get promoted, but then eventually take her job, take my job down the road. So we just want to again let you know I'm here to support you. I know everyone in this workshop will give you their phone numbers, and you can contact them as well. But I think we've made some progress, but I know we have things that we still have left to do. So I also look forward to finding out how else we can support you to make sure that you're as successful as possible. So with that, I want to thank you again for being here and turn it back to Susanna. Thanks.
Thank you, Provost. I want to mention that page 2 of the agenda has a list of contacts with their phone numbers, and also some important web pages for you to find the information you will need as you go through the process. Just want to share a screen here for a moment. Because I just want to say, I remind you, if you don't know already, hopefully you've already been involved with some of the OWED programs. All of our programs is aimed at faculty. It's for your professional development, to enhance it. We know that you are a scholar, but you work for FIU, but you also have a national reputation that you're interested in promoting. And so we want to make sure you know the best practices that are current in the field right now. And also the Faculty Mentor Program is aimed specifically at doing what we can to enhance your career path. I put up this list of our programs just so that you would know that we are going to be sending out an email tomorrow or Friday, inviting you to some of these other workshops that maybe you haven't been required to come to, but would like to come to. We're very, very happy that the STRIDE faculty hiring workshops, which have been going on for about 10 years, have really been an important groundwork for our diversity initiatives here on campus. And we have had success at increasing the number of women and Hispanic faculty at FIU through these efforts. And we want now to focus on Black faculty recruitment. The STRIDE Diversity Advocate Program is fairly new. That's for one person on each search committee to act as an advocate, to do outreach and recruitment. And a lot of people are asking to come to that just because they're interested in the process of running a really good search. This is the first year we had the Tenure and Promotion Committee workshop as a requirement for a select group of people. It was aimed at those serving on college tenure and promotion committees, chairs, and deans. And this is an effort that Kathleen and I have teamed up on to make sure everybody understands the procedures we want everybody to follow here at FIU. And Kathleen has spearheaded the efforts to make sure that there are written guidelines for tenure. She'll talk more about that later, but we don't want you to be in the dark about what you're expected to do. But we are going to have 3 sessions of this tenure and promotion workshop offered by the STRIDE committee. They will be offered this spring, so anybody is welcome to attend those. And I've had one chair who says he's going to have one of these just for his department as a whole. So we are happy to be a resource for you. And then thanks to you, if you're one of the 400 people that came to the Bystander Leadership Workshop. This is a very innovative program that we're getting some national attention for. We want to spin that out to more people. It's very interactive, and we can only have 24 in a group. So we've had to suspend it due to COVID, but we're working on virtual options for it as well. So we hope to see you at one of these in the future, if you haven't been already. And welcome back. If you've already come once, come again. So now I invite Kathleen Wilson, the Vice Provost of the Office of Faculty Leadership and Success, to speak.
Thank you, Susanna, and thank you, Provost Burton, for the inaugural position. And I do take it very seriously. I want to reiterate what the Provost said. All of you are here because you're really good at what you do, and we want to continue to support you in your work. And please reach out to any of us. My phone number is at the on the last page of the agenda. Please feel free to reach out to me directly if you like. So as the provost designee in the promotion and tenure process, I am very involved with the entire process. And you can reach out to me at any time if you have a question or if something has gone awry. I'm happy to report that the Faculty Senate approved a new promotion and tenure manual. To my knowledge, there were more eyes on that document than at any other time in the past. So many people looked at it. We included all the stakeholders. The union has yet to decide whether we can implement that immediately, but I do want to share that it's mostly clarifying processes and making it clearer. So it's actual promotion and tenure guidelines. We have asked all departments to have those available and published for every title and every rank within each title, so that you are very clear about what you need to do for tenure and promotion. When you were hired, the guidelines that were in place were the ones that you will follow. If there has been a change in your department and you've been on the faculty for 3 years, you may opt to use the new ones, or you can continue with the ones that were in place when you were hired. If you decide you want to use the new ones, you need to let your chair know. I would suggest that you do it in writing so you have a paper trail. Let me tell you a little bit about the new tenure and promotion manual, which will be on the Provost's website along with the former one. It clarifies our values. We spell out our university values right in the beginning of the document. It simplifies and clarifies a few other processes. For example, third-year review used to be in a separate document. So did non-tenure track process. We have incorporated that into one so that nothing gets lost and you can find it in one place. And as Susanna mentioned, we are now requiring training in promotion and tenure for all chairs, deans, and college committees, which will really help them, but most importantly, help you when you go through this process. We're happy to report that there were about 150 people who took that training just last fall. The other thing we clarified, as you know, on tenure, you come up, you begin the process at the end of your 5th year, but it's in your 6th year. And at the end of that year, then that goes into effect in the following year. And that is an actual clock, and you will get a notification from Panther 180, and your chairs will. But if you are already tenured associate professor, you decide when you want to come up for full. you have that right. You do not need to wait for anything from the provost's office. If you feel that you have met the criteria to be full professor in your field, in your department, then you come up. I joke, even if you just got tenure, if you won the Nobel Prize, I would expect that you would come up the next year. Another thing that we clarified, because there was some confusion, you have the right to come up for promotion even as a chair. In the past, I believe there was some confusion that you had to wait till you were no longer chair. No, you have the right to come up and be promoted even if you're chair. And that is also if you were in a center, because you are all covered by the CBA unless you're in medicine or law, or an administrator that has an 80% of admin piece, or you supervise someone else in the CBA. But the promotion and tenure process applies to everyone, whether you're in unit or not. So that's sometimes a confusion. Let's see. Oh, so if you're in a center, the provost suggests that whenever possible that you have a home in a department, and then it's the chair in that department that will spearhead that process. You may be in a center and not be in another department, in which case your center director is responsible for that. And we've been working with center directors to help them through that process, so that everyone, because everyone has the right to be promoted, whether you're a research professor or tenure track or anyway. Let's see what else. Oh, I said this before, but it's incumbent upon all departments, and of course the chair has to make sure this happens, that you have very clear and stated criteria for tenure and promotion to associate, but also to full for every title and every rank. That's only fair that you know what's expected of you when you come in. The other thing that's new is we now have an evaluating teaching project, and it's a way for you to talk about your teaching, and you can collect data, or the expectation is that you will collect data from peers, students, and yourself, and you will put that in Panther 180, and then your chair will include that in your annual evaluation. Now, you are not yet obligated to do that, although we highly recommend it because of the current MOU, because of COVID, no one will be harmed by that. But it can only be used for good, and it will help you make your case that about your teaching. So we highly recommend that you take advantage of that. Every department has gone through that process, and every department has some specific guidelines of how they want to do that. So reach out to your chair if you don't already know about it. You can also reach out directly to the Center for the Advancement of Teaching. Let's see, I think that's basically it. And I'm sure you'll have questions, and we will answer those after you hear from your colleagues who've recently been promoted. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Kathleen. Really appreciate all the efforts you've made to organize faculty processes. It's a huge improvement. Now I'd like to welcome Eric Dwyer, who is the UFF grievance chair and former president of the United Faculty of Florida. And he didn't realize it, but this seems to be a permanent gig for him. So he might be doing this in perpetuity. But anyway, welcome very much, Eric.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks to everybody. Thank you to the provost office. Thanks to the provost. Thanks to Kathleen. Thanks to Suzanne and the Audit office and all the good folks who are doing this stuff. I've got a good dog and pony show for you in celebration of Groundhog Day yesterday. And I am happy to represent the lone panel person who is not a member of the dark side, but though I appreciate all the folks that are, who have set this up. If I can, I have a little thing for you. So give me just a second here. So I can set up the technology. my favorite part is to tell people that I'm setting up technology. So here I am setting up technology and telling you so. All right, here we go. The union's been around for quite some time, on the order of 30 years or so, more than that. The current president is Martha Meyer, and she sends her greetings. You can contact her at this email address, which is martha.meyer@uff-fiu.org. The other document that I want to set you up with today, as we examine union stances with respect to tenure and promotion, is the collective bargaining agreement. This is pretty much the starting point when there are any problems, and it's also a starting point when looking at what your rights are and also what your rights aren't. And so I'm going to try and give you an overview of what those are with respect to TNP today. So please feel free to check out and learn and absorb the CBA at cba.uff-fiu.org. There's lots of good information there. Right now, the collective bargaining agreement is being bargained, and I mean from head to toe, the whole shoot and match, and that happens every 3 years. Every year we tickle it a little bit, but this year is a big year. As you look through the CBA, you'll find a couple of things that I want to point out to you. One is tenure. It has its own section found on page 17. And to that end, you're also going to be very interested in looking at what the CBA has to say about assignments, which you can find on page 55. When there are problems, and when you may find that administrators are not coming to a conclusion that you're in agreement with, you can reach out to the grievance office, and that's where I'm situated within the UFF structure now. And you can reach me at my union address, which is eric.dwyer@uff-fiu.org. Now, if you end up needing to go through a legal process and have the union support it, I'm afraid you need to be a member. And if that's something that interests you, you can go to the membership by going to join.uff-fiu.org or contacting our guru, who is Josh Popasek, and he has his address there. Finally, while you're trying to write down all of these things, and we will provide you with this PowerPoint, so don't worry if you don't have a pencil handy, that's okay. I do want to make a point right here, and that is one of the keys to gaining promotion is to make your file navigable and easy to read. And that should be a mantra. Is my file, is my portfolio easy to digest? This should be important information, an important question that you ask yourself all the time while compiling your information. It's interesting to look at the CBA a little bit. You'll be interested to find that the word tenure is found inside the document 111 times. So it's fairly important to the people who put it together. The word promotion is found another 60 times, and you can find information about promotions on page 75. Of extrinsic motivation is money. And money is very important to us, especially, it may be one of the reasons that we go up for tenure, notwithstanding some of the other freedoms that come along with it, and responsibilities, I should say. But the first promotion will garner you 12% raise, and a second promotion would be a raise of 14%. Now, as we go through this, I want to make a couple of comments about academic freedom, as it is a big part of why we do what we do and how we do it. And FIU and the union, and indeed the American Association of University Professors, or the AAUP, have a strong commitment to academic freedom, meaning the notions of you're having major say with what you teach and what you produce. And FIU has made a very strong commitment to that. By the same token, when you have academic freedom, you also have academic responsibility. And that means that you have the responsibility to be honest with respect to what you do. When it comes to tenure and promotion, especially tenure, this is of primary concern to the university. And so just a little cautionary warning here is that the idea of being honest is sublimely at the top of people's thinking when they look at your file. Now, when we look at promotion, I'll point you to the CBA's section 9.3. When we think about tenure, there is a tradition of tenure that means that you are tenured in a field. That is true. And the evaluators will likely look at your file through a lens of, are you worthy of promotion in your field, which will be based on your scholarship. But the contract, the CBA, is very clear that this is not only about being tenured in your field, you are tenured in accordance with your annual assignment. Your assignment has everything to do with it in your contract. In addition, you are evaluated on those assignments. Therefore, your annual performance evaluations will be equally as important. So while I will grant you the evaluations and the references to scholarship as being important and probably at the forefront of those who evaluate your file, similarly, I want to point out that your assignments and annual performance evaluations will be critical. Another piece of the pie is your initial appointment. And this is a very small document, but it gets you started off on the right foot, hopefully. And it lets you know what you're likely going to be doing over the next few years. It may even give you an idea of what your assignment will be. But it is only a starting point. As such, you want to clearly double check it every now and then. You also get an annual notice of length of appointment and salary. And that salary email should come to you probably in late August, no later than your first paycheck in the fall semester. Changes in appointments happen every now and then, and that's true. And why I want you to acknowledge that it's easy to get a new appointment, I want to encourage you to make certain that you get everything written down. Any changes should be documented, because we'll try, if there are any problems down the road, we want to be able to compose a story of what your experience has been. Thus, if there are any changes from the time you started FIU through the time that you're going up through promotion, then it's best to be sure that we have an account of what those changes are. When we look at the academic appointments, we see that the timeline usually happens from August to August. Now, on a 9-month faculty, here's how it looks this year. This year's academic appointment actually started on August the 12th, which is amazing, right? You didn't realize if you started teaching on August the 26th that you'd actually been on assignment for a couple of weeks, right? Well, that's how it is. You actually were on call during that time, and that extends for 9-month faculty through upcoming May 11th. If you're on a 12-month assignment, and there are not going to be too many of you, but there are some, you're going to go all the way to August the 11th. And I'll note that the summer semester right now is scheduled between May the 12th and August the 11th. Lo and behold, the dates are the same for next year, currently. I say currently because assignments and calendars have been changing fairly regularly in the last little while. COVID's had quite an effect on our calendar, and I have no reason to suspect that that might not happen again. Thus, while the dates are written down right now, I will encourage you please to look at the Provost website under calendars and timelines for any updates, and pay attention to Faculty Senate reviews, because that's where you might find a change in any of these dates. I'm hoping there aren't any. None of us are hoping that there are any, but just on the off chance that that happens, then hopefully you're informed accordingly. All right, I've said the word assignment a lot. Let's get to what assignments means. Assignments, this is going to be the bulk of how you show what it is that you do. You are evaluated on your assignment. Let me say that again, because it's a simple sentence, but it actually means a lot. You're evaluated on your assignment. Now, you get your assignment in the summer, no later than 6 weeks in advance of the semester, of fall semester. And so it's really interesting to be sure that you're clear on what's going on. Here we say in our considerations for assignment that no employment assignment, including flat form of delivery, shall be imposed arbitrarily or unreasonably. So that means whether you're online or face-to-face or hybrid Q or whatever you, or high flex, that there is a line of thought that underlies how you are assigned. Changes in assignment will occur. The university administration has a lot of leeway in how assignments go. Now, I just said a few minutes ago that you are to receive an assignment 6 weeks before the beginning of the semester. That is true, and I hope that all of you get that. But please do not be surprised if there's a change here within the last couple of weeks before the semester gets going. or even tighter than that. We, the union, don't like the tight changes close to the end, but they can be understandable. Enrollments don't make, people get sick, things happen. And these are unforeseen, but they always happen every semester. And the administration does have the right to sort of figure that out. It is a Rubik's Cube. And so the union understands that that's supposed to happen, but it's okay also to be in contact with us and ask the question, is this okay? Because on the off chance that it's arbitrary, then the answer is no. Usually it's not arbitrary. Usually it's a really good reason. But just in case, let's make sure and be okay with what the result ends up being. Equitable opportunity. And this can be complicated because often equitable opportunity means simple equity. Well, simple equity may not occur because people turn down opportunities. The point here is that there has to be evidence that people are offered across the board anything special. So if you get an opportunity to write towards some sort of grants in ways that are offered across your department or unit, then everyone has to have a turn to say yes or no. If there is a skew toward a particular person or group of people and against others, then we can look into that. And every now and then that is a question that's posed by a department where some people are offered while other people are not. Sometimes it has to do with like learning assistants or research assistants or teaching assistants. And some people are offered while others are not. And we have to go in and figure out to what extent was everybody offered such a thing. So those things come in handy when you look at assignments. I'm going to pass through this. The employee performance evaluation is also an important aspect. Now, your evaluation comes at the end of the year, and once again, you get it after you have completed your spring semester, meaning you're going to get your evaluation also in the summer. You should get it 45 days from the time that the spring semester ends, or if you're on 12 months, from the time that the summer semester ends. And I'll show you those dates and what that means in just a moment. When you get your evaluation, you have only 30 days to respond to it. Now, I do not mean 30 days from the moment that the deadline occurs. It's 30 days from the moment you get your eval. That's what the CBA says. So once you get your evaluation, no matter what time of year it is, it behooves you, I believe, to go ahead and look at it. And if you have any issues, address them straight away. Don't wait. Even though it's a summer, and even though you may want to think about it for a moment, I think I would address it straight away. Those 30 days go by fast, and usually it's not on your radar in the summer. So please pay attention. These become important because whatever goes into your evaluation, if it's not addressed, will be what people evaluate and use at tenure and promotion time. So these become really, really important. Now, should you have a question about your evaluation, there is a chain with which you can ask for commentary and time for conversation. It starts with your chair, and if you're not satisfied, you can go up to a senior associate dean, to the dean, and indeed to the provost office. But you have the right to do that at all stages. Now, here are those dates I promised you. And look, there's a theme of 25 that streams through the entire set. So coming up this year, as scheduled currently, your evaluations should be to you no later than Friday, June the 25th. And if you're on 12 months, then September 25th. Now, that gives you 30 days max to respond to them. This means the latest day to respond would be July 25th and October 25th, respectively. But like I said, be sure you calculate from the moment that you receive your eval, because that's the day that your 30-day clock starts. Now, I'll ask Kathleen to chime in here for a second. We have played with those dates a little bit on certain occasions. Here are the two recent ones. One, with assignments and evaluations, we negotiated with administration like Kathleen and those folks because we needed to delay a little bit. This was out of a concern raised by some department chairs. So we negotiated that. And the second part is the 30-day rule. If we are working in communication with the faculty member, and there may be a time when that 30-day is approaching and we need a little extension, the provost office has been good enough to at least converse with us. Is that right, Kathleen?
Yes, we're very collaborative, and Eric and I talk on a very regular basis, sometimes weekly. And we adhere to the CBA, which is a legal document, but we also recognize that things happen. There are, unforeseen events. And so we're very reasonable to work with chairs and faculty if there's an issue. But do your best to honor those deadlines just in case.
Yeah. Those legalities pop in and when we least expect them. But I am grateful to the provost office in recent years for being workable with respect to these timelines. Now, similarly, assignments. Right now, the scheduled deadline for chairs to get you your assignment is Tuesday, June the 29th. In the last 2 years, especially this last year with COVID, we've needed to extend that, and we've been working with the provost office on those dates. But right now, that deadline is June the 29th. So why do I point that out? If you do not have your assignment in by June the 29th, and the chair is not responding to it, then I would like to know about it. The grievance office would like to know about it. And I think there are many chairs who legitimately have reasons to extend, and we can work with the provost office, just as Kathleen just said. But right now, the deadline is June the 29th. You should have something. Now, as I mentioned earlier, assignments often change here within a couple of weeks of a semester. That's okay, but I still think it's really important that you get something in writing to start with by June the 29th. This way, you are still able to articulate the story of your experience. So when you pay attention to those dates, then you have a timeline, you have a scenario which is easy to follow. All right. And finally, I just want to remind you, these things happen in the summer. Right now, as I'm talking to you, I have the hunch that it's very easy to say, oh, yes, I'm going to be good. But while you're off in the summer doing other stuff, it may fall off your radar. Go ahead, write them in your calendar now, make it go boing on your computer on those dates so that you are aware that you need to pay attention to these issues. Why? There is one other critical element to the CBA that you need to know about, and that is the 45-day rule. The 45-day rule entails that you have 45 days from an instance of something occurring to address it. 45 days is a month and a half, so you're like, okay, I have a month and a half. 45 days is nothing. It's nothing. So you want to be on top of it. And by the way, 45 days dips into the fall semester only a little bit. So when you're probably aware of it and you want to address it here come in August, you have very little time to sort of get your things gathered. So pay attention in June and July so that if there's anything that you need to address, we can address it. And I'll keep my light bulb open for you so that you can address it if you want. All right, third year review. Third review is an important aspect of the tenure process. And you want to pay attention to third year review and some of the rules in the CBA, as well as the tenure and promotion guidelines that Kathleen just discussed. Now, all tenure earning will be reviewed in their third year. And faculty hired within 2 or more years of the tenure credit, this review should take place in their second year of employment. So anyone who is going through this should go through this third year review. There should be guidelines that are articulated in your department or your unit, and you should pay attention as closely as you can to those procedures. The procedures of your evaluation file are important, and Priscilla Johnson is here with us, as mentioned, to discuss the ins and outs of Panther 180. One of the elements that I want to point out is that you have the opportunity to put in brief and concise responses at any time that someone else puts something into your file. Likely this will happen at at the following junctures. When letters are put into your file, when there is a decision from your department, from your chair, from your dean, from the provost, from the president, at any point, that you have a chance to respond to that. And you have, but get this is the important part, you have 5 days. So I want to point this out too. 5 days right now may seem like, okay, I can do it 5 days. Let's say that the judgment does not go your way and you're kind of miffed about it. Often in those occasions, we say to ourselves, let me take a deep breath. I don't want to write anything now. I'm just mad. No, I'm going to recommend against doing that. Go ahead and spew your thoughts onto some sheet of paper. You may not send it tonight on day one, but you want to put those down and then return to it soon, because those 5 days are going to fly by. You do not want those 5 days to fly by without having said something. Because once those 5 days are gone, Panther 180 is going to go, whoop, bye, see ya, chance lost. So go ahead and make certain that you are able to say something fairly cogently within those 5 days, and be aware that that time is going to fly by. All right, here's something that I want to recommend to y'all, and that is to keep an assignment chart. An assignment chart has to do with the allocations of your assignment with respect to research, teaching, and service. And for some folks, that may include an administrative part. I hope not, but if it does, then go ahead and put that in there. And you can choose, according to the guidelines of your department, whether service includes administrative or whether you need a separate column. Now, let's say that you have these 3 columns. The typical place that we start is on a 2-2. The 2-2, so 2 classes is equivalent to a 45% teaching allocation, which means you have a similar amount allocated toward research, also representing 45% of your assignment. And then many people have a 10% service assignment. And a lot of folks manage to maintain that for all the years prior to going up for tenure. But sometimes that is changed. Sometimes people will have a larger research component. Why? As I said earlier, you are tenured in a field. So one thing that some chairs do is they amp up the research component so that you're spending more time on research. And if you do that, then go ahead and report that the proportion of assignment is skewed a little bit differently. So in this particular case, it might be 57%. You may still be, and you might only teach a 33% class. So you have a little bit less teaching going on, right? Now, things happen in the middle of the year all the time. And when that happens, my recommendation is to be sure you communicate with your department chair. When you're communicating with your department chair, it is very likely, highly likely, that you'll get asked any of these questions. Could you please join a new committee? Or could you please change your teaching assignment because we've got to accommodate some students? Here are some questions that I hope you will ask in every occasion. 1, how does that affect my service allocation? How does that affect my teaching allocation? How does that affect my research allocation? Why? Because you are evaluated and promoted based on your assignment. Therefore, these allocations are major clues into what you are asked to do. So, having said that, let me remind you also of some union positions. First, assignments are almost always at the purview of the administration. 2, allocations are to be aligned with the unit's differentiated assignment policy. Now, that's the first time I've said that today, but I think you'll hear it a few times from here on out. Differentiated assignment policy, some people refer to it as the DAP. This has to do with what happens when you have a class that ends up feeling large or larger than normal. And every department is to have a differentiated assignment policy. Please, please, please. And if you don't, then let's get it done. This is a big deal. It's a big deal in teaching. It's a big deal in all the aspects of your assignment. What this has to do with, let's say that your department says that, okay, anything from 1 to 50 for a 3 class counts as 1 class. But when you have from say 51 to 75 students, then it counts as 1.5. When that happens, if you drift over into the 51 to 75 category, that's going to affect your teaching allocation. Or it may, you may say that's okay, but it should then adjust your service or research allocations. So you want to be sure that you're paying attention to your differentiated assignment policy. The last thing I want to say is to remind you that your assignment is yearly. This means you're going to separate every assignment year by year. This is important. Why? Well, the reason why I say why has to do with the cautionary tale. The cautionary tale is that there are stories of chairs saying, all right, last week before a semester, your class didn't make, I have to cancel your class. You appropriately say, how does that address my teaching allocation? The chair says, don't worry about it. You just take up another class next year. No. And here's why. It's because you'd end up having, here's what you could end up doing. You could end up having this open space that is not evaluated, but you are treated as if everything is just fine. And then the following year, that course shows up, you're also not evaluated on it, but it takes up time. Actually cutting in to your research and service, most importantly, your research, and you think you're doing a favor to the university. But no, the university at evaluation time, at promotion time, is looking at your assignment. Well, that's not on your assignment. So it's going to cut into it. So no, we don't rob Peter to pay Paul to do that. We only have yearly assignments in order to do that. That's a very strong opinion by the union. All right, let's go back to the assignment chart. And I'll point you to the bottom area right here of averages. And right here on a normal allocation, you see this might be normal. We go 45, 45, 10. But then we might say, oh, let's change something. My teaching needs to go down to 33 so that I can raise my research to, say, 57. And that's what you would do. So I can change that over here, change that to 57. So that's something that you would want to do. And that would happen. You would have to do that in negotiation with your chair to make sure that the documentation is copacetic when you put it on Panther 180. All right? So make certain that your documentation is secure. I just gave you one cautionary tale. I want to do another one. Here's on overloads. Now the union is, overloads always mask a problem. Overloads are nice because you get a little bit of money, but from the union standpoint, it masks an issue. So, and usually it masks too much work on the part of professors. So we're not big fans of it. We understand why people want to take them. We understand why administrations want to give them, but it usually coats a piece of information that is easily overlooked. Now, if you do that, often the story goes, these are cautionary tales of people that have tenure problems. The story goes, oh, well, I took on an extra class because I thought it would be good for the department, be good for my program. So I should be rewarded for that, right? No, that's considered gravy. You do that because you want to, but it means the assignment that you did, which is what you were evaluated on, is still just that. That's what you get evaluated on. That's what you get promoted on. So if you don't complete your assignment at the expense of an overload, then you will be dinged for it at promotion time. Same thing. Particularly in the humanities, we see a lot of pushes for grants. In the science world, grants are a part of your assignment. This is not such a big deal. But for folks where grants are not necessarily a part of your assignment, many people really take to heart the very strong requests by administrators to do grants. And understandably so, they should ask you to do grants. But let's understand what happens with grants. I don't want to discourage you from grants, but I also want you to be aware of what the issues are with grants. The thing is that if you end up doing grants at the expense of your assignment, you will be dinged on your assignment. And that would be appropriate based on the rules and the contract. So Bear that in mind whenever you say yes to taking grants. I'm not going to tell you not to take grants. Grants are great, but I want you to be aware of what the complications are. The second thing here is, well, I mentioned this about robbing Peter to pay Paul. Okay, all right. At the end of this, look at these averages again. When you have these averages, let's say we have an allocation like this, midterm change, where you see differences. At the end, we can see how close we are. In this particular example, we see that this person actually did more than normal service. Well, that's really interesting in a case like this. And this happens to a good number of faculty. And yes, you should be partially tenurable by doing service well, especially when you've done more than normal. By the same token, your teaching would be a little bit lower. And so there might be a little bit of salt given by the evaluator with respect to what people have to say about your teaching, because you've actually added effort into service. And this would be based on the norms of what evaluators call being tenured in a field. When you have 47.4 by research, you're pretty close to 45. That's pretty much in the ballpark of what a tenurable assignment would be. So that's probably not going to be looked upon by an evaluator as I have to worry about whether it's a different assignment or not. But let's say that the research allotment was in the 30s. Then the evaluator should get notification not only from the chair, but in any letters and documentation noting that the research assignment is lower than normal. You'll want to be on top of that as person participating in your own tenure and promotion process. Now a word about COVID. You may have noticed that in the last year or so, there have been opportunities to stop the tenure clock. If that has happened, I hope that you will notate it in your charts and in your documentation. Anything that happens toward that. Just to reiterate, in the MOU, it says that you are to be found harmless in any issues relating to COVID. And so you want to be able to document that as much as possible. A couple of comments about outside letters. I just mentioned that the reason why I like these charts is because when you're tenured in a field, the idea of being tenured outside of research and having to deal with teaching a service may be of importance to some faculty. And therefore, you'll want the chair and the university to offer those instructions regarding such in the letters offered to outside reviewers. Similarly, you want to say that about tenure clock stops. Finally, in the CBA, you have reference to the notion of whether you have access to looking at the outside letters during the tenure promotion process or not. And that decision is made by your department. So be sure you are on top of whether you can either yes, look at the letters during the process, or no, you're not permitted to look at them. That's decided by the department. Be sure you check with your bylaws. It should be in your bylaws. All right, that's sort of what I got. I look forward to your questions and comments in the Q&A. And thank you very much, everybody, for giving me your time and attention. It's lovely to spend time with you. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you, Eric, for that great remarks. I realize I went a little off agenda. So what we're going to do is have the two first person accounts up next, and then Priscilla Johnson will give information about what she and her staff does to help you with the tenure and promotion. So I'm very pleased that we have two people here today to talk about having gone through the tenure process recently, tenure and promotion. Miguel Cano, Associate Professor of Epidemiology, was promoted last year, and Kimberly Taylor is now Professor in Marketing and Logistics. So Miguel, would you start first? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak this afternoon. As Susanna said, I'm Miguel Ángel Cano, an associate professor in the Department of Epidemiology. So I'll just briefly chat a little bit about my experience going through the tenure and promotion process, and I'll rewind a little bit actually, because I think that really preparing for tenure and promotion starts day one. As soon as you get your faculty position at FIU. So the first thing, I'm hoping some of you are, not necessarily going up for tenure promotion this year, but it's a little bit earlier in your tenure clock. One of the first things I would do, even your very first semester, would be to discuss, have a meeting with your department chair and really have an open discussion about what are the expectations for your department and your college. And so I remember one of the discussions I had with my department chair was asking, what was the expectation for grant submissions? What was the expectation for manuscript submissions? Even asking, if there was a distinction between a regular article submission and a brief report, because sometimes certain departments will weigh those differently, where maybe brief reports weigh less than a regular article. So that's important to note. Again, in my case, they were the same. They made no distinction between a brief report and a regular report. The other thing I would recommend that you ask explicitly about are the priorities. But again, I think you'll probably develop a sense of this on your own, but it's always good to have an idea of what those are. And this kind of goes back to the assignment chart that Eric was showing. Sometimes there's certain needs that come up within the department or the college, and you might be asked to step up or step in and do certain things. But again, I think that one of the key guides, particularly pre-tenure, is that you really need to be protective of your time. And if certain things, are being put on your plate that or feel might not necessarily be genuinely valued, that's probably a good thing to say no to. So again, in my department, it's very clear that what's valued the most is research, and within research, it's grants, number one, and peer-reviewed manuscripts, number two. So it's very easy to prioritize research activities, and then everything else falls behind research. Again, I think, especially for assistant professors, sometimes I think it could be flattering to have a lot of students interested in your work and wanting to work with you or your lab. But I will caution you, students take up a lot of time, or they can take up a lot of time. And necessarily, that's not something that's always valued, mentoring students or spending time working with students on projects. Again, if it results in a peer-reviewed publication for the both of you, that's great. But if it doesn't, again, you have to be very protective of your time. So again, I think there's a time and a place. So now, having tenure, I do feel a lot more liberty to spend time mentoring students and helping them develop their interests as opposed to pre-tenure. And then the other thing, going back to the external letters, which carry a lot of weight. Again, informally, I've always heard within the provost evaluation, that's one of the elements of the application that carries the most weight is the external letters. So again, I would definitely be very proactive in networking within people in your field, particularly if they're influential, getting to know them. But again, not necessarily collaborating with them, because that would exclude them from providing an external reference for you. But again, finding strategies, again, through either conferences or your existing network, to have them introduce you to other individuals you want to connect with, because again, those individuals are going to be key to reach out to when you're asked to provide names. I don't know if every department is like this, but at least in my case, I was asked to provide a list of names of potential external reviewers. They're not necessarily going to pick everybody on that list, but oftentimes they'll cherry pick a couple of those folks from that list that you provide. And again, if you have, even though you haven't collaborated with those individuals, if you do have some kind of rapport with those individuals, it's more likely that they're going to provide a favorable letter for you. But those are kind of some of the key strategies that I have to share with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Miguel. I'm really glad you brought up the point about the external reviewers and the need to do your networking to make sure you're known, even if it means sending your publications to people that you're not sure if they've read them, but if they have them in their file or in their email, they might look at it next time they're writing a paper and you're connected with them. So I think that's a great strategy. So we're also going to hear a few words now from Kimberly Taylor about being promoted to full professor. Welcome, Kimberly.
Great. Hi, everybody. And thank you, Suzanne, so much for inviting me to speak to this group. I'm really glad I tuned in early. So I got to hear Eric's presentation. Some of Eric's presentation was really insightful, and I'd learned some things, and to hear from Miguel as well. So I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. As Susanna said, I am recently promoted. This is my first full year as a full professor now in marketing and logistics, but I've been at FIU. I started here in 1994. And so I got tenure in 2000. So I think I'm a little bit of an unusual case because as you can tell, there was a 19-year span there until I did decide to put in my my promotion application. So one thing that I wanted to stress is that it's never too late, because I'm sort of living proof of that. I kind of thought, and I have some colleagues, as well, who got tenure and, continue doing research, but one of the things that happens to you once you get tenure is, as Miguel suggested, you are protected in that pre-tenure phase a lot. At least if you have a good chair, you should be very protected, and you should protect yourself and your time, because research has to be your focus, and of course your teaching to get to that point. You don't really have that luxury anymore once you do get tenure. Now you're one of those people that does have to do the things that we don't expect and we don't ask of the people on the tenure track, the pre-tenure. So you do start to take on more committees and more working with students and all sorts of service work, and that can kind of take you out of your pure research track if you let it. And some of it is interesting and valuable things to do. And I also just, my sort of personal story, I had 2 kids along the way, and, so that takes a lot of time. And I also am a breast cancer survivor. So 2009 to 10 was my sort of journey through a lot of treatment there. So for all of those reasons, I never was necessarily sure that I was going to even go up for full. But then, my kids got older, I felt better, life goes on. And I ended up having sort of a stretch of research productivity now in this sort of later part of my career that really was as productive or more so as my very, early pre-tenure years. And I kind of looked around and saw some other people that were going up for full and realized my record, was equal or surpassed some of them. So why not go for it? So a couple of things I guess that I just wanted to say is, one, that it's never too late, but definitely don't necessarily wait 19 years like I did. And some departments, so you may want to look into this, some of them do have a standard or, something sort of in their policies that just as we have that kind of 5 to whatever it is, 6th year that you come up for tenure, some departments have a similar expectation that you don't get tenure and then right away in a year, apply for full, that there might be a period of time or an expectation a little bit, which, can be flexible, but, so look into that. And I wouldn't necessarily wait the 19 years because, a promotion comes with additional salary and with, I didn't think it would feel that different, because, let's be clear, getting tenure does provide you a measure of security. But getting full actually did provide an additional sort of, feeling of security and just seniority. So I was a little bit surprised that I didn't expect to feel that. So it's, it's never too late, but, definitely, once you feel that you're ready and you meet the criteria, and you should be in consultation with your chair about that. But, also don't be afraid to go up for that, that next step, because it does come with, not only the financial side, but I think another measure of seniority. Couple other things to touch on. I myself was surprised that you actually need external letters for the promotion to full. I don't know why I was surprised by that, but I think I thought since you're already here and everybody knows you and they're sort of judging what you have done here, but they do, you do have external letters for that level of promotion as well. And ours is you're able to provide some names, and then your department chair, chooses some names as well. So kind of similar, but you don't really have a lot of say into that. Also, while they do look at the totality of your record when you're going up for full, the major emphasis is on post-tenure. So that is important. If you may have had a lot of great publications pre-tenure, and those still count. And in particular, if like citation counts are important in your field, and that probably varies across fields, how, whether they care about that or not. We seem to really like to look at that in business. So obviously your earlier stuff is going to still be getting cited, hopefully. And your newer stuff won't be getting cited as much. So, that all counts, but they also want to see obviously a continuous, level, of research, and primarily that you have also done some things, since tenure. You're not going to get promoted to full based on what you did. Basically what got you the tenure. You can't sort of double count it in a manner of speaking. And then I guess the last thing that I'll mention is I think that when going up for full professor, there is also an expectation that you have contributed in some leadership roles, and whether that is to your profession through, being a journal editor, being a, conference organizer, that type of thing, or whether it is within your college and the university. So there should be, some sort of, leadership roles that you have begun to take on that are sort of indicative of that level of seniority that comes with full. So I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Kimberly. That was very helpful. I would like to pick up on your idea that it's never too late. We do match associate professors with mentors. We're also very interested in your ideas about what other kind of program we could do for the associate to full professor path. We want to help you with that. We expect everybody to succeed at that, if as long as you're interested. I'm glad you didn't give up. I think it is really great to be at full rank. It's a good feeling. It is a surprise. Maybe you think you aren't going to feel different, but you do. You've reached the top of the ladder there. And one other thing about the associate review process, the chairs are now supposed to, in your annual evaluation, inform in a meaningful way what your progress is toward promotion to full. And I think Kathleen can speak to that more. I think we're trying to really make sure that's one of the ways nobody gets left behind, because sometimes if you're not in the informal network, there's nobody saying it's time for you to go up. And faculty have the right to go up anytime they choose, but you of course, you want to make sure you're going to be successful when you do it. You don't want to end up being rejected because you went too soon. So now I'd like to introduce Priscilla Johnson, who is in the academic handles a lot of the academic personnel issues. And she's going to introduce her staff and talk about her responsibilities. Is she here? Did she come back?
Yes, I'm here. I apologize. I was having some technical difficulties earlier. And now I have some little people. Give me one moment.
Susanna, do you want me to answer some of the questions in the meantime?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead while Priscilla's trying to.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
It's turned over to you now.
okay.
Okay.
So let's see, one of the questions was, what's the timing? And it is confusing. I still have to kind of think it through. You technically come up for tenure in your 6th year. However, the process begins at the end of your 5th year, and it goes into effect in the fall, the beginning of your 7th year, along with your raise. But that gets confusing. I always have to think it through myself. There also is some confusion about the difference between tenure and promotion. generally speaking, you're hired as an assistant professor and you come up for tenure and promotion to associate at the same time. Sometimes, not often, but sometimes a faculty member will be hired as an associate and they still haven't come up for tenure. I do not know of a case where an assistant came up for tenure but was not promoted to associate. I suppose that has happened, but not since I've been here. So I think, and then once you're an associate, then your next promotion would be full, obviously. Third year review. That obviously happens in your third year, and Eric pointed out that if you come in with time on your tenure clock, it'll probably be in your second year on the faculty. That is generally more formative than summative. In other words, it's not a mini tenure process. It's to help you know what either you're completely on track, go full speed ahead, you're doing it right, or it may be, gee, you need to do more of this, you need to do more of that. Pay very close attention to that, because in the tenure process, your evaluators will be looking at what your committee said in the third year review. So don't ignore that. You will be held to that. Let's see. Next question. Oh, a percentage of assignments. That's also a little bit confusing, but we actually have a Florida statute that says the basic assignment is 4 classes in the or 8 classes a year, and so the way that breaks down, or any of or the equivalent, which would be research or an enhanced service assignment. So the way it works is one course counts as 11.25%. So if you were doing 8 courses a year, that would be your 90%, and then everybody has 10% service. Now, because we also have a differentiated assignment policy, depending on, and you have that conversation with your chair, you may be doing more research, less research, more teaching, less teaching. Pretty much everybody gets 10% service. And I know there was another question. I did a lot of committees. They didn't show up in Panther 180. Unless it's significantly different service, like coordinating a program or something like that. The things you do for your professional organization, and yes, thank you, Caroline. The things you do for your professional organization, the reviews you do, the committees you're on, that's just all 10%. But anything that's an assignment should be in your annual assignment. So let me stop with that question, go back to Priscilla, and then we'll pick up the other questions after Priscilla. Thanks.
Hi again. So I just wanted to provide some resources for you. Let me go ahead and share. So I know that we're eager to learn about the schedule for this year. I'm still working on updating that because I want to be sure that we've taken into account all of the tenure clock adjustment forms that we received. So that should be going out by Friday. And I think somebody's trying to visit. Sorry about that. So give me 1 second. I'm just trying to find my screen. There it is.
What's wrong? Nothing.
Okay, so if you go to the faculty resources page, I think it's one of the resources that's on the agenda that Susanna had provided earlier.
Yes, it is. It is on the page too.
Yeah, so that's what I want to direct you to. And again, I apologize for my kids. They're very friendly right now. And then the Panther 180 support page, which is here, panther180.fiu.edu. And you'll be able to find any tutorials for trainings, as well as the manual and how to submit your files there. And I just wanted to clarify that I'm your resource for timelines and eligibility. And Abilene Pinzone and Marshall Maurice are your contacts for Panther 180. So if you have any questions about Panther 180, you email panther180@fiu.edu.
And would you stop screen sharing, Priscilla? Kathleen, are you there?
Okay, yes. All right, back to questions. Let's see here. There was a comment, and yes, I just made myself a note. We will make sure that we update the calendar and post the new T&P manual on the Provost's webpage. Okay, I was supposed to teach a class of 70 and it was 130. It ended up being 130. Do I adjust my teaching assignment? That's not a one-size-fits-all question. It depends on the differentiated, I see Eric nodding his head, depends on the differentiated assignment policy in your department, which every department has or is in the final stages of finalizing. And that is, depends on the course. If in your differentiated assignment policy, it says something like, up to 70, but over that, you get credit for another half a course. You get credit for another course. So I can't answer that across the board. It would depend on the differentiated assignment policy in your department. If you don't know what it is, ask your chair for it. So it may be that if you taught 130, that counts as 2 courses, or maybe it counts as 1.5. Or it may be one of those courses that can go all the way up to 150. So have that conversation with your chair. Let's see. Service. I talked about that a bit. Technically, we all have 10% unless it's a significant service assignment, which would be like graduate program coordinator or something like that. And then that should be in your assignment, should be reflected in your assignment, and you are evaluated on it. Sometimes you get a separate evaluation for just that, but generally it's part of your assignment. And now I want to stray a little bit and say it's very difficult if you don't have tenure yet and a senior faculty member who's going to be voting on your tenure asks you to do something and you don't feel that you can have time to do that. I recommend 2 things. Reach out to your mentor for strategies on how to turn that down, because I agree with Miguel. Protect your time, because there's going to be plenty of time for enhanced service afterwards, but protect your time. And with a group of my mentees one time, we spent a whole session practicing how to say no. And here is one. Thank you so much for your confidence in me. However, I couldn't possibly do it justice with everything else on my plate right now. But practice saying no, because it's ultimately it's your tenure. I also advise you to have a mentor. Reach out to Susanna's office, and that includes if you're an associate. In fact, I'm even a mentor for a full professor right now who's interested in an enhanced leadership position. And so I'm working with her. I think you should have one in the department just for, how does it work in the culture of this department? One outside your department at the university, which is best practices, and at least one in your field outside the university. Use your mentors. Miguel made a comment about external reviewers in the promotion and tenure manual, the current one, but also the former one. When your chair has to show you that final list of external reviewers, you have an opportunity to add to and to strike to. Please make sure that you know that there were a few problems with that last year. Let's see here. Oh, your tenure, because we had quite a few tenure clock extensions this year because of COVID, but every year we have some if you're on family medical leave or anything like that. That automatically postpones your third year review as well. Then there was a question, do you need to pass your third year review in order to apply for tenure? So that's a tricky question. And the short answer is no. That's supposed to be a formative process to let you know what you need to be doing. However, until you have tenure, you are still an at-will employee. It's not a guarantee. So if for some reason another person, not anybody on this call, is an absolute and complete disaster, you may not get the opportunity to apply for tenure because, and it happens very, very rarely, and it's, but it has happened that people have not had their contract renewed before they had a chance to apply for tenure. That's very rare. So it's not about passing your third year review, but do take it seriously. Let's see, does anybody else want to weigh in on any of that before I look at more of these questions? Let's see. Is COVID-19 affecting people's ability to get tenure at FIU due to budgetary cuts? No. First of all, we've given everyone the opportunity to have a tenure pause, and all you needed to do was just to say COVID is affecting my work, and we have approved every single one of them. You know, there's still some unknowns about how long this is going to last, but I don't know. Eric or Susanna, do you want to, or Caroline, do you want to weigh in on any of that?
I haven't heard anything regarding tenure from the legislature or anything of that. I mean, I imagine that question comes from what's going on in Kansas, but
Okay.
nothing like that is occurring, to my knowledge, with the Florida legislature. Believe me, if we learn about it, we'll let you know.
Yep.
Right now, I don't think that's on our table or even on our radar, apart from what's going on elsewhere in the country.
No, I would say not at FIU anyway. Okay, the next question is for Priscilla. Is there a special section or field in Panther 180 where our research teaching statements should go, or is that just put in additional documents?
There is a special section. What you're seeing in Panther 180 right now is just the regular activities that you would enter. Once we open up the application in March, you'll be able to see the other section, the other categories that allow you to add different things.
Okay, next question. What is the process if I want to go up for tenure early? There is an actual form that you fill out requesting coming up for tenure early. And it's signed by your chair and your dean, and then it comes to the provost's office. I always caution people, make sure you really want to do that, because if you are denied tenure, that's it. Conversely, if you have already asked for time on your tenure clock toward your tenure, and you decide, you know what, I really not sure I'm going to get done what I need to get done, you have a one-time opportunity to rescind all or part of that. And all you have to do is just let us know that. Let my office know that. There's an actual form though, if you want to time off your tenure clock. But I caution you. Will options on tenure clocks be revisited for those that did not freeze last fall due to longer than expected impacts from COVID? I'm not sure I can answer that because I don't really know, but I will say that the provost and everyone on down, certainly my office and the union, will always support the faculty. So we don't know the full extent of what it's going to look like. It's very likely that this will continue to affect your work. And I can assure you that we'll be very thoughtful and lenient about that because we understand. And it can be as simple as my kids are screaming in the background. I can't think. That's COVID affecting your work. So all you have to say is COVID is impacting my research. You don't have to give any more details. Let's see. Am I correct that the first step in the tenure process is that the provost office will advise chairs with a list of those eligible? Then we go from there, just checking. Yes, that is correct. And Priscilla might want to weigh in. She lets the chairs know who's eligible. Then your chair, you will want to prepare your file that will be sent out to external reviewers, and you will work with your chair on that list. To Miguel's point, you will give some suggestions. They will come up with some of their own. You get to see the final list. You may add to and strike to. Let's see. Ooh. Is there any FIU policy on the number of external review letters? I believe that's, and somebody may need to weigh in here too.
It's in the TMP manual. It has
Yeah, I
to
think
be
it's 5, isn't it?
But
Yeah,
I believe that most chairs will request more than 5, just in case not all of them respond.
right. Right. So you may end up with more is the point, but I believe it's a minimum of 5. In addition to mentors, I have found the UFF grievance chair and ombuds to be very helpful resources. Thank you very much for that. So yes, Lauren Christos is your ombuds. And as you know, Eric is your grievance chair. Is there a level of consistency in tenure standards over time? For example, if mine is similar better to someone who recently, how shall I take this fact as an indicator for my tenure chance? Or if our unit has a new incoming chair. That's why it's so important that you have written criteria so that it doesn't become subject to, so it doesn't become subjective based on a certain chair. So make sure that you have a copy of the tenure and promotion criteria for your department. Can you please take a moment to discuss the actual process? What goes first, then goes second? Priscilla, do you want to take that one?
I can take that one. So, in terms of the schedule, so first we send out a list to the chairs of who's going up, and the portal opens in March. So then Panther 180 will contact all of the applicants to let them know that the application is ready. That's for tenure applicants. As mentioned earlier, if you're an associate professor that's already tenured that you want to apply, you will need to notify us by a certain date. And that was what I was trying to share earlier, which was the schedule. So, and then after that, you have the rest of the spring through the summer to prepare your file. And then it's due in late August around like the first or second week of school, first or second week of fall, I should say. And then it goes through the department, the chair, the college, the dean, the provost, the president, and the BOT. So that process will take most of the academic year. And at each level, when a letter is submitted, like from the department or the chair, you have 5 days to respond with a rebuttal. If you have no comments, you don't have to respond. The 5 days will pass and then it'll go on to the next step. And the rebuttals can be anything from maybe your publications were misquoted or a grant was not stated correctly, or if it's a negative recommendation, then you can submit a rebuttal to that. As far as adding things to the file, I think Eric touched on that in his presentation, that you are able to add anything to your file, but throughout the process, but it'll only be reviewed by any subsequent level of review. So let's say you get a new paper is published, but the department has already met. So the next review level would be the chair. So that addition will be reviewed by the chair, the college, the dean, etc. The department will not go back and re-evaluate your file because of this new information, because it happened after the original file was submitted. So you will normally get the final decision from the president in May. I believe the CBA states that you have to be notified by May 15th. So you'll get that decision by May 15th, and then the Board of Trustees will officially confirm your tenure sometime in June.
Thank you, Priscilla.
You're welcome.
And please reach out to Priscilla or Panther 180 for those kind of questions. The next question is a good one. Is there well, they're all good. I don't mean that. Is there a place where one can see sample statements for the third year review and tenure dossier? I would suggest that you ask your mentor and maybe reach out to Alwyd. Caroline or Susanna, can you answer that one or add something to that?
We don't have access to those. I think it might be best to ask somebody in your department that recently went through it if they will share it. That has been the best success, because people from other departments may have different criteria. It's very hard to compare.
Yeah, and it's been my experience that your colleagues are very happy to do that for you. So someone who recently got promoted, yeah, I would just ask them to see their file. Ask a couple of your colleagues. If we came in with tenure, oh no, I've gotten mixed messages about the ability to be rehired in a non-tenure earning role in the event tenure is not made. Does FIU have a policy, or is this decided at the college and or department level? The stated policy, or well, what really happens is if you don't get tenure, you have one more year and then you are no longer on the faculty. If it looks like you might think you might not get tenure, it's certainly a conversation you could have with your chair and your dean. It generally should not be in the year that you're coming up for tenure. We have had a few cases where the chair or the dean or the provost, for various reasons, have made an exception, but it's very rare. Do not count on that. It's generally doesn't happen. If you don't get tenure, you have one more year and then you're no longer on the faculty.
Kathleen, I think even the exceptions have been the person is withdrawn before they went through the whole process, because once you go through the process and you're voted down, you're down and out.
Yeah. there have been a couple of extremely rare cases, but extreme exception. Let's see, if we came in with tenure credit with previous teaching and research, do these previous experiences count toward? I would say yes, because it's part of your, but to Kimberly's point, it's always very heavily weighted on what you did after you came to FIU. But yes, you should certainly include that and it would count. Does anyone have any different opinion about that? That would be mine. Okay. When do the lists go out? I think maybe Priscilla already answered that, but do you want to just confirm that, Priscilla?
Yes, so the list for faculty that are up for tenure should be out by Friday. And then the faculty, to answer Professor Lampert's question, you would have to, if you are an associate professor that wants to apply for promotion to full, you need to notify your chair before March. The date, because the chairs would have to notify us of who's applying by early March. The date from last year is around March 2nd, so it'll probably be around that same time. So when I send the list out for tenure on Friday, if you can, that usually gives you some time to think about if you want to apply, and then just notify your chair before that early March deadline. And we'll be reaching out to chairs just to confirm the candidates from their departments as well.
Thank you, Priscilla. And I think Priscilla just answered June's question. When do you ask for promotion? Now, and you talk to your chair. Just as a strategy, you want to find out if you have the support if you're going up for full. It doesn't stop you from coming up, but it helps to know you have the support, because you might not want to go through that otherwise. Can we have book editors where we have chapters as our external reviewers or editors of special issues? Generally speaking, you don't want to have, I mean, if you're an expert in your field, then most people know who you are. But I wouldn't include an external reviewer with whom you have collaborated, because it could look like a conflict of interest. So I would say no to that, but use your judgment.
I would like to say sometimes special issues do reach
Okay.
out to experts in the field. It's not necessarily a collaborative relationship. So you'd have to think it through.
Yeah, just if it has the appearance of a conflict of interest, don't do it. If you have been tenured at another university, is it advisable to use the same or different external reviewers? Gee, I don't know. Susanna, what do you think?
I think if you were tenured somewhere else and you came here without tenure, is that, I'm not clear whether that's the question.
No, it says if you've been tenured at another university, so I'm assuming it would be going up for full.
Going up for full. I don't know if anybody at FIU would even know who you used at your previous university, so you might be able to use them again. Yes.
Yeah, I wouldn't. What happens to summer research support after the third year review is extended? Do we get additional summer support?
No.
Not really related.
Maybe this person is getting it from their department because they're pre-tenure in their first 2 years. It might have been part of their offer letter, but it's
Okay.
not a standard practice. And maybe if the department has funding to do it, they could do it, but it's not expected that you would get it.
Yeah, so it's depends on your department. Okay. How much value is placed on publications with students and PhD placement for promotion to full? Well, I think it depends on your department.
I know some departments really look to see whether you have ever graduated a doctoral student. or
Mhm.
master's students. So is there evidence of mentoring at that level? And presumably you would publish with them if you're also working with them that closely. But student placement, that would be a department level criteria.
And yeah. Let's see, thanks Priscilla. For associate professors, when you say notify us, meaning just your chair needs to be notified? Yeah. So that is correct. Just notify your chair. Should they also reach out to you, Priscilla?
They can reach out to me. I would suggest, because Panther went to send it to Panther 180, because that team is going to be the ones setting up the profiles and all of that. So I mean, anything that I get, I would generally copy Panther 180 so that they can activate the profile.
And the next question is, Priscilla, those going up for third year review, do they also get a notice from you?
Yes, they do. So I actually, as I said, I was working on the tenure list and also third year review. So those should be going out between tomorrow and Friday.
And the next one's tricky, and we have made some various exceptions. So Priscilla, I'm going to let you start. In the case
Okay.
of tenure applications in the third year, would the third year review be submitted simultaneously?
So there's a couple different scenarios that has happened with those. So the way that the CBA or the manual states it, that everyone has to go through third year review, and anybody that has 2 or more years of credit goes for third year review in their third year. So when you have 3 years of credit, you come up for third year review in your third year, and you're in your second year of employment. And then you almost immediately go up for tenure that following fall. So some faculty have done both. They'll go up for third year review in the spring, and then the immediate fall, they'll go through the tenure process all over again. Some faculty have opted to waive their third year review and apply immediately for tenure. And that's, an individual decision. They have discussion with their chair or discussion with their mentor, and, evaluating their tenure package and what their research and accomplishments look like. And then some faculty have opted to go up for third year review earlier, and then that gives them a year to implement any recommendations from the third year review by the time they apply for tenure the following year.
Okay. I could answer the next one, but I think I'm going to ask Susanna to answer it. Are there special provisions for minority faculty? For example, women, mothers, non-US citizens for tenure in comparison to general faculty?
Well, I'm not sure what provisions, I mean, the same process applies to everybody. Although for mothers, we do have a good parental leave policy, and they would work with your office. Obviously, the parental leave is a 6-month leave. It can be divided one time at least, so you could do 3 months and 3 months, and that will stop the clock for a year each time that you use it. So there are provisions there. Those parental policies are also for men. So it's not tied specifically to citizens, non-citizens, or whatever. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah. So essentially, no, other than the provisions that are in place. So question to me, I did approve all tenure clock stops due to COVID. I absolutely did. Are we going to get notified about this with an email? First of all, you can know that I did approve it. But Priscilla, maybe you know, because you and I have been the ones sending those DocuSign forms back and forth.
So there are still some that are pending. So know that any, like Kathleen said, any ones that were submitted due to COVID will be approved. And so you should be getting those notifications by the end of the week. If you can follow up with me directly as well, if you haven't gotten your notice yet or the approval.
The next question, I'm not positive, but how do you determine impact in the field for promotion to full? I would think that would depend on the criteria that you have in your field and your department.
And also the external evaluators, that's what they're asked to assess. Would you be promoted at their university to full rank based on their criteria that they're using? That's why the external reviewers should be from Research One universities, and it'd be at the professor rank if they're going to be reviewing you for promotion to full professor. So there might be some criteria certainly within your own department that might add things like citation count, as Kimberly mentioned, but otherwise it's really the standards within your field nationally for Research One professorship, professor rank.
Right, thank you. And I will also say that the provost does look very carefully at those external letters. That's all I have in the Q&A, unless there's something else that I missed, or if there's anything. It looks like Eric wants to say something.
I wanted to say something about the diversity issue. Is that's much to Susanna's credit, we have diversity committees in most departments right now. And one of the calls from this university is to examine the systemic issues of racism in your own field. And so while the university may not have an overt policy on how to address racism in your tenure promotion process, there is a call for us as professionals to examine what's going on in our own fields from a grassroots level. And that grassroots level has now been passed on to members of the diverse committee. So there is a sense that we are examining that, but it's not at the high administrative level right now, as I understand it. Am I stating that correctly?
That's really great, Eric, and thank you for bringing that up. In the mentor program, we do try to provide extra support. We know that scholars that are either in marginalized areas within their own field or minority applicants sometimes aren't or marginalized. And we're actually having in May some speakers come in to talk about it's called the scholarly devaluation as a barrier to faculty diversity. Because if you're a Black faculty member and you're doing research on Black people, that might not be seen as mainstream research in your area. So we know that's a factor. We are trying to think of ways to address it. We think the departmental diversity, equity, and inclusion plans might be helpful in this regard too. And we are also working with the Black Faculty Association to, they have a mentor person and they have a couple of people working on this to support the Black faculty. And of course, it doesn't matter what kind of faculty member you are, what demographic you are, we are happy to work with you, but we recognize that there are certain marginalized groups within the university, racial, systemic discrimination, and we're trying to deal with it from a climate standpoint by having workshops. We're very grateful that Carleen Vincent Robinson's going to do a microaggression workshop later in February. So, and Caroline, I don't know if you have anything else to add from the AWID standpoint on this.
Just that in the workshops that we run for TMP committees, for deans, for chairs, we do discuss biases against those from minority groups, whatever those groups may be, and discuss ways to ensure that those contexts are taken into account. Some of us are swimming upstream. It's a little bit, more challenging. So we do discuss that.
Thanks. This is a really important question, the next question, to clarify. the thinking that grant work not counting towards promotion. No, it's depends on the kind of grant, and it depends if, generally speaking, that would be part of your research assignment. So I think, Eric, you might want to clarify that, because I think that.
I was worried that might be confusing. I was referring mainly to folks probably in the humanities that may not have a grant assignment, but are asked to get grants. Whereas in many of the sciences, grants are a part of your assignment. If grants are a part of your assignment, then you have to do grants. So that's plain and simple. But there is encouragement in other units across the campus where go get grants, go get grants, go get grants, but they're not part of your assignment. Therefore, it's relegated to gravy. And so you have to be careful of when you say yes or no. So I think it's harder in some departments than it is others. But Kathleen's point is right on target. If it's part of your assignment, then yes, you got to do it.
Well, and even if it's not in your assignment, depending on, how your research assignment is defined, it might be considered part of it.
Research,
Depends on the kind of grant, and so.
Correct.
And maybe that warrants reaching out and talking to your mentor, talking to your chair, talking to Eric or me, just to clarify. But
I would
in general,
definitely with the chair.
Grant work, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, another question is, how do you evaluate interdisciplinary research? That's not an easy question to answer. I will try, and then I'm hoping my colleagues will join in. Especially because the provost really wants to support interdisciplinary work. We want this to happen. So my suggestion is you ask for letters from people in other departments, maybe in other colleges that are contributed letters. Is it possible to have reviewers from other disciplines? I would say yes. I would say talk to your chair, just to make sure that this is going to support you. And I'm hoping my colleagues will weigh in with their opinion.
Well,
I have seen this before, yeah.
Right.
I'm sorry, Suzanne. I'm sorry,
Well,
Suzanne.
as someone who had a joint appointment in women's and gender studies for almost my whole career, you have to make it clear in your research statement as to how your work contributes to your field and to the interdisciplinary area. And I would probably suggest maybe you'd ask an extra reviewer to, interdisciplinary reviewers. So when I've worked with people that have these joint appointments, maybe you would have 3 that are more just within the canon of the field, and then a few that represent that interdisciplinary area. Unless you have full professors at or somebody tenured at a Research One university that is in the interdisciplinary area. Some interdisciplinary areas end up being disciplines in themselves. So you might be, on the cusp of a wave of whatever you're doing becoming a new field of work. So that's a question I would say whoever is asking that, it'd be better to have a conversation with you about the specifics of what your interdisciplinary area is. I volunteer myself for that if you would like to talk about it.
Thank you, Susanna. What about LGBTQ faculty? Would you advise them not to come out until tenure? At FIU, we support you. That should have nothing to do with your tenure whatsoever. And your personal life is your personal life. And I would certainly hope that there is nobody on any of your committees that would be influenced one way or another. So I'm sorry to be so vehement about that, but my experience of FIU is, I can't speak for every single person on the faculty, but that is not who we are. That's all I can say. Would anybody else like to weigh in there?
Well, I would say that's my hope for FIU.
Yeah.
But as a out lesbian myself, I think it is it can feel risky, and it really depends what department you're in and the comfort level your colleagues have. It's a personal decision, as to what you perceive the costs of having to conceal that, because it is actually very tiring never to mention your personal life around people that are probably talking extensively about their personal lives. So I just don't want to be have too optimistic a response. I don't think anybody would say they're not voting for you because you're LGBTQ, but we know that there are unconscious biases about LGBT people, so that wouldn't be the stated reason for a negative attitude that colleagues would have toward you. It would probably be something else. So I wish I had a clear answer. My sense is that, the humanities and social sciences, it's easier to be out than in the sciences and engineering, for instance.
And thank you for that more nuanced, realistic response.
You said the right thing because you're the person making at these decisions, but
I know. So it is a personal choice, but I certainly hope that. Yeah, that's not.
you think you're having problems because of that, then we would try to help you with the situation.
Yeah, you'll reach out to us.
Please take notes. If you suspect that something's weird going on, and I don't mean just only LGBTQ issues, but race issues or any type of discrimination, take notes. Even if you suspect, start taking notes, date those notes, because you're going to want to start carving out a story. If you need to bring that to our attention, we're ready to go with it. But I can understand why someone needs to take the temperature of your environment. That makes complete sense. And as far as I'm concerned, if you feel like you need to take the temperature of your environment, it's time to start taking notes.
And keep a paper trail. And we haven't talked about this much, but you have some legal recourses as well. We have IDEA, which is over in HR general counsel side. If you think you're being discriminated against, you should reach out and file a complaint. Let's see. The last one.
We're coming up on the end of the hour now.
Okay, and the good news is there's only one more question.
Great.
Can someone still apply to stop the clock for COVID? The current MOU ended. You could apply before December 31st to stop your clock. So at the moment, the answer is no. Now, as we know, COVID is continuing to affect our work, and in my opinion, it will for probably another year. So I would say that it's quite possible that we will have another MOU where you can continue to do that. But at the moment, the answer is no. We will, however, be very generous and considerate if you need to reach out in the meantime.
Yeah, bargaining has just started, so stay tuned. We'll have something coming out for the summer. I don't know whether this is going to be part of it or not, but yes, please stay tuned.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming today, our speakers and our faculty, first person speakers. We sent you a link to fill out an evaluation form. Would appreciate your feedback, and especially any ideas you have about making this more relevant to you. Or of course, if you thought it was beneficial, we want to know that too. I don't want to name everybody that spoke today to thank you, but we will be posting this on the website. We'll send a link to you as soon as we get the video back, and we will also be putting Eric's notes on the website. So feel free to contact awed@fiu.edu if you have any questions, or me, S. Rose. We really appreciate you being here. I think this has improved the process so much. So thank you to the United Faculty of Florida and to Kathleen and her office for being here to provide all this information.
And I want to thank all of you for being here. We recommend that you come to this every year until you get tenure or promoted, because you'll learn something every year. And please know that we are committed to your success. So use the resources available and reach out to any of us.